All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a set of instructions that on the surface seem super simple, but they're hiding a really peculiar secret. We're going to decode a directive where the journey is absolutely everything, and the destination, well, that's what we're here to figure out together. So it all starts with this one simple command from our source material. Create a notebook compiling all of the title sources. Seems straightforward enough, doesn't it? Like a basic filing task. But trust me, this one sentence is the rabbit hole we're about to go down.
First up, a simple directive. Let's just take these instructions at face value for a minute and break down the nuts and bolts of what's actually being asked.
So really, what are we actually being told to do here? What's the core action at the very heart of this whole thing? The magic word is compiling, and the source material spells it out for us pretty clearly. It's all about gathering and arranging. Now listen to the words being used: gathering, arranging, collection. See a pattern? This is all about doing stuff, not thinking about stuff. Okay, so the sources basically give us a recipe, a 4-step plan. You gather the sources, consolidate them, arrange them systematically, and then bam, you create the notebook. But look closely at what's not on this list. There's no step 5 for analysis or interpretation, is there? It's just a purely mechanical workflow. And why bother with all this? Well, the official reason is pretty mundane. It's just an organizational task to make things easy to access for future reference. Everything here just screams efficiency and order, but that's what makes you wonder, right? If it's that simple, what's the real point? All right, on to section 2, decoding the task. We've got the how down pat. Now let's dig into the why, and this is where it really gets interesting. You know, when you start digging into the source documents, something kind of weird just jumps out at you. There's this one idea, and it just keeps showing up again and again and again. It's like they're really, really trying to hammer a specific point home. And here it is, the big reveal. The act of compiling itself is emphasized as the central objective of the entire process. Just let that sink in for a second. The goal isn't the finished notebook. It's not the neatly filed information. The whole point is just the act of doing it. The process is the product. Now, that's just completely backwards, right? I mean, normally, the process is just a means to an end. You organize your bookshelves so you can find the books later. But this implies the goal is just the act of putting the books on the shelf. Why on earth would anyone be asked to do that? And that question leads us right into our third section, the central objective. This is where we crack the code, and we're going to do it by looking at what the sources deliberately leave out. The real clues are in the silence. So, if the key is what's missing, let's start with the most obvious, glaring omission. What's even in these diverse title sources? What is the content that we're supposed to be organizing? The answer is nothing. Crickets. The sources give us absolutely zero details on the content. We're told the sources are diverse, but we're never told how. And this isn't an oversight. It's a deliberate instruction to completely ignore the content. Okay, fine. So the individual pieces of content don't matter. But what about the big picture? Is there some grand insight we're supposed to get from just collecting all this stuff in one place? And here is the smoking gun. The sources explicitly state that there is no holistic understanding to be gained. It's a direct confirmation. The directive is telling us point blank, your job is not to understand, your job is to compile. So let's move to our final section, the missing pieces. Because now it's crystal clear. The whole point of this exercise is defined not by what's there, but by what has been deliberately taken away. This chart right here lays it all out perfectly. The focus is entirely on the left side, the process, the organization, the act of creation. And it's defined by everything on the right side being completely absent. There's no content to analyze, no synthesis to perform, and no understanding to be gained. It's a task of pure procedure. Which brings us to our big conclusion: process over content. The key takeaway here is incredibly simple. You have to focus entirely on the how, not the what. The objective is just to follow the steps, not to analyze the substance. And you know, this leaves us with a final fascinating thought. This whole explainer, it's been about a very specific, and yeah, a very weird directive, but it forces us to ask a bigger question. When is the process more important than the product in our own lives? Think about it. like practicing an instrument or training for a marathon. Sometimes the discipline of the process itself, that's the real prize. Definitely something to think about.